the GST India Accounting. I am IR Aziz, and on my side is Faiz. Hi, Faiz. Cheers. Yeah. Okay, we are going to go through the third session for the GST India Accounting. So I'll move to the PowerPoint presentation now. And let me just put the PowerPoint presentation now. So we have gone through the GST India, implementing GST in your company operation, in your accounting. We are going to repeat again what we have shown in the previous session, but it's going to be very fast. And then after that, we'll move how to do transaction for your purchase receive invoice. Correct, Faiz? Okay, so we are going to go through the PowerPoint. After that, we are going to go through the system. Uh, by now, you would already know about the various terms on the GST, the input tax, the output tax, the central GST, state GST, as well as the integrated GST. If you are still not so sure about this, then you should go to our previous webinar. By now, you should have your for the Office Central. If you still haven't got it, then go to the website on top, testing2.officecentralcloud.com. All your data, the one that you develop here, will be kept there. So later on, once the GST is launched in India, you will go to the V2 Office Central Asia. All your database will be the same database. It's just that by that time, the application will be finalized because we have all the data for the GST by that time. So if you haven't got your account, just click the button, click here to register on top, and then you are going to get your account. You are going to get the free license to use the Office Central for up to August 2017. So you practically get about 3 or 4 months of free use of the software. You can upload all your, and you can do your transaction, various transaction to make sure that you learn about the GST. Once the GST is officially started, then we can start with fresh transaction, and all the previous transaction we actually can remove that transaction. So I hope by now everybody have your own username and password, so you actually can later on you can actually log into the system and do your transaction. But during this session, we'll show you how to do the various transaction. And this session, we are going to focus on the transaction for the receive invoice, basically all your purchases. This is very important for you because you are going to claim the input tax from the government. So you must do the receive invoice transaction. Like I told you before, if you haven't registered your company as a GST company, then you try to go to our website to actually look at the procedure how to register your company as a GST company. And then you know that if your turnover is more than 20 lakhs, then you must register as a GST company. Your company is doing business, then you must register as the GST company. There are some other terms why you should register as a GST company in the list. And then you should know the GST rate, the central GST, how much it is, and state GST, how much it is. The actual rate by the government, once the government set the rate, then we will set the rate inside the system, and your accounting system will be using the correct rate. You don't have to do your own setting. And we are monitoring the various approval from the government, like what are the rates for essential item, common use item, standard rate, and high tax rate, luxury good tax rate, and all that. So you don't have to worry about it, the rate is set, the system, the rate will be there. We expect the GST to start 1st of July, so wait for the official announcement. And then after the GST, all the central tax as well as the state tax will be removed. We have gone through the list of the various taxes, the one that are removed in the previous session. I've also made the list of the various central tax and state taxes, the one that are removed. And also, for example, the municipal tax, like the octroi tax and the local body tax, going to be maintained. Okay, so come back to the GST. The GST is the value-added tax that you need to pay at all points in the supply chain, with credit allowed for the any tax paid on input acquired for use. So basically, you pay the output, you pay the tax, claim your input tax. And in India, you have central GST and you actually have state GST. You must understand the destination principle. Basically, the GST is the GST of the destination of the product. So doing, for example, selling your product to another state, the state GST is actually the GST of that of your product, that particular state. If you are importing, obviously the destination is your own state. So your state GST is your state GST. And you will also learn on the, if you are doing export, that's a zero GST. And then if you are doing import, then you actually use the state GST. And we also talked about the various benefit of the GST in the previous session. And we also have shown you the structure. If you are, for example, in Tamil Nadu, if you are doing business within Tamil Nadu state, then you are going to use the CGST and GST. But once you do the outside Tamil Nadu, for example, you are to Karnataka, for example, then it will be integrated GST. Integrated GST is actually the state GST plus, and the state itself is actually the destination state GST. So if you are selling to Karnataka, then the GST for the state is actually the GST for Karnataka. And then we already talked about the zero rated GST. When you sell your product, you actually, the GST is zero, but you can claim your input tax. And but if you are selling GST exempt, as from the GST, you don't have to pay GST for it, and you also cannot claim the input tax for that particular GST exempt product. So that's the difference between zero GST and GST exempt. Also shown you the anything that you buy for your business, your raw material, your rent, electricity, furniture, professional services, and whatever, you are paying GST for it. That is called input tax. And then when you sell your product, your goods or your services, you are going to add tax on top of the price. So that is the output tax. In principle, when you pay to the government, you total up all your output tax, and then you minus all your input tax. The balance you actually pay to the government. In India, there is the input tax is a little bit different from other countries, where you can only claim the input tax when your supplier already paid the input tax to the government. You can only claim the input tax when your supplier already paid the input, that tax to the government. So that's slightly different from other country, but you will learn about it later on. We also have shown you the various stages of the supply chain. where everybody in the supply chain will claim the input tax, and you will see that there is no cascading of tax because of the concept of the claim of the input tax. You can see from this page. And like I told you before, if you are doing export, so you are selecting zero GST for it. In the accounting system, you are going to select code for the export, zero GST for export. And for this, you actually can claim your input tax. And then if you are importing goods, then you are going to pay tax at the custom point. Then you actually can claim that uh, the input tax. And if you import services, for example, you need to pay the GST for the services. There is a transaction process inside the accounting system for you to record this import of services GST transaction. And of course, when you want to implement the GST inside your company, there will be changes after the GST. Review your supplier, review your sales contract, review your cash flow. You see that you need to pay tax before, even though your customer haven't paid you. Look at your credit terms, and then look at your invoicing. Your invoicing follow the GST format, and look at the bad debt. If your customer don't pay you, then there will be impact on your money, correct? Because you cannot claim that bad debt. Implication on the input tax credit, where, for example, if your supplier have not submitted the tax to the government, you cannot claim the input tax. How do you check that? In the GSTN network will show you how to do it. Your HR must be trained on the GST, and then your accounting system must be capable of handling the GST accounting. This session, we are going to show you how to do the accounting system that comply to the GST. You can do your exercise until before the GST is launched. Okay, this is how you want to implement the GST in your company. And we have gone through this list before. There are when you do your accounting transaction, you can do certain selection of the GST codes. There are most of the transaction will be the standard rated, but there are some other transaction that can happen. Be zero rated. It could be exempt supplies, or it could be out of scope. I mean, you need to select the correct code, and you are going to be using a lot of the standard rated, but then you may have to use the zero rated, exempt supply, dim supply, export code. So you will learn about that. And for the output tax, all the invoices must be according to GST rules. So when you issue invoice, make sure that your invoice have all the information, the one that's required by the GST rule. And remember, you are collecting money on behalf of the government, so you actually need to pay to the government. And the same thing for your input tax. There are a lot of the tax codes that are available for you to select during the transaction. Most of the transaction will be on the standard rated. And of course, then if you are doing import, you will select the codes for the import. Okay, so you are going to look at the codes for which is the standard rated, and then sometime you are going to look at the exempt supply or block input tax or import of goods, this sort of thing. So make sure that you know what are the codes to be selected. The same thing for the input tax, for example, you should claim from the government for the input tax, and you need to understand the method to download the input tax from the GSTN. Basically, what you do is you go to the GSTN and you actually can get the list of all your purchases from the GSTN. And after that, you can compare your purchase listing and then compare it with the list provided by GSTN. After that, you are going to upload the discrepancy list to the GSTN so that then you can have the GSTN database will get all your purchase inside their list. Okay, there are a few important report, the one that you want to know to look at. One of them is Gst R1. This is the detail of the outlet supplies. Basically, this is your supply listing. And then you have Gst R1A. This is detail of outward supplies already corrected by the recipient. And then you are looking at the Gst R2. This is actually the inward supply, which is a purchase listing. And then Gst R2A, which is the purchase listing, the one that is generated by GSTN based on the data furnished by suppliers. And then of course then you have Gst R3, which is the combination of the purchase listing and supply listing. So you actually can get Gst R3 from the GSTN. You can also compare your own Gst R3 compared with the government Gst R3 and see whether there's any discrepancy or not. And we have gone through in the previous session how about the revenue, how to issue invoice, what code to select. I just show you the PowerPoint. We have gone through the system in the previous session. And if you do interstate issue invoice, then you just select your customer. And if the customer is registered in another state, the system will understand that it will be the integrated GST. And then this is the process of the issue invoice. And if you are doing, when you purchase things from you are going to go to the expenses module and you go through the process of receive invoice. We are going to go through the system after this with Faiz. And this is the receive invoice. We are going to go through this after this. And you can see that when you receive invoice, the system, you need to do the accounting system for it, the debit and credit. But the system actually will do the transaction for you. Of course, when you, for example, when your supplier give you some price reduction, they must give you a credit note for it. They cannot delete the invoice and issue you a new invoice. Once they issue your invoice, they actually need to give you credit note if there is any reduction in the price. And you can look at the Gst R1 outward supplies listing. This will be provided by the system. You can also get the Gst R1A from the government under GSTN to look at the list from the government. Gst R1 and then purchase listing, inward supplies. You can also get it from your system. And you can also get Gst R2A from the government. This is the one that is uploaded by your suppliers. Then you can compare the form, and then you can upload the various discrepancy into the GSTN form. And this is the purchase listing from the GSTN. Okay, after you have done your Gst R1 and Gst R2 transaction, then you actually can get the Gst R3 form. but you can also generate GST R3 form from your accounting system, and you can compare with the government generated GST R3. If everything is correct, then the value will be the same. If there is the discrepancy, then you need to find out why there's discrepancy and correct the mistake. And this is the sample of the Gst R3 forms, the values along. Okay, Faiz will go through the real system, the real system. Let me just get into the. Let me just get into the system. This one, right? Yep. Okay. Faiz will and me will go together with you on the real system. Now we already logged into the real system. So if you are not yet logged in, but you already have the username and password, then this is how you do it. You have your username and password already. You log in your username and put in your password. You should be able to get into the system um, after you log in. So, but you don't have to log in now if you don't want. But you can try it later. But if you want to, then you can actually log in and try to see whether you can get the same system or the same display that we have. Each one of you would have a different account inside the system. So now you already log in. So you log in your name, just click log in, select your name. In this case, we have so many accounts. What? Okay, once you log in, then you actually can see this front page uh, after the login, and then you actually can select the account. Select the account. On top of the Office Central, there are so many modules inside that. From the left, you can see human resource, payroll, accounting, finance, CRM, purchasing, point of sale, and distribution. So basically, you have many modules that you can use inside the Office Central. Today, we are going to focus only on accounting and then focus on the uh, receive invoice. But before, those who have gone through the previous that you need to go do through certain setting. The one that you need to remember is the setting, the global setting on the right. So that's where this the global setting. So if you are new to this, then you have not done your setting. Then maybe I'll just show you the setting, the one that you need to do. These are the setting, the one that you need to all the various currencies. For example, you need to do currencies. The taxes we already set for you, and you just need to select that set up tax for India. You click that, and that's it. The thing will be set up for you. And then after that, you basically just need to go to the accounting. The company profile is also the thing that you need to do before you system. This you have done in the previous session. So you look at your company name, your email address, and all this. You can see the various things the way you need to do setting inside the system. But the important thing is what is your state, and you select the state. So because that is important, the system must understand where you are so that you can select the correct state GST later on. And then you also need to do setting at the GST when your GST start. If you start on 1st of July, then just put it at 1st of July. But during the testing period, you can select any months you like. Just play around with the system. And it doesn't matter. When the real GST start, then you can just set the correct GST date, and then we can remove the previous transaction. So you have select the language and culture, and then you select English India. So basically, you are going to use English, and all the rules for the accounting will follow Indian GST. That's it. Once you do that, of course, there are other things that you need to do, like the logo and the various things. That one you can go through another session to do the various other setting for the account. Today we are going to focus on the GST transaction. So okay, now we are looking at the receive invoice transaction. So go to accounting, go to expenses, and go to receive invoice. So you just go to receive invoice and add new. Okay, that's how you do transaction for receive invoice. We actually already have the name of a few suppliers inside the system. So, for example, let's say we do the receive invoice for the supplier within the same state. For example, our company is registered in Tamil Nadu. So basically, you are purchasing from supplier in Tamil Nadu. Then you select the supplier. The system will understand that the supplier is from the same state. So they are going to select the state GST, the one that is relevant to that particular supplier. So just key in the reference number of that invoice. So that is you actually going to receive from the invoice from your supplier. Okay, do whatever the subject there, fill out your subject, and then put in whatever the product, the one that you purchased there, and the price. Let's say you buy 1,000 rupee, and then now you select the tax. So we let's say during this transaction, this is the standard rated. So standard rated, you select standard rated, and then the system would know what is the total standard rated. The standard rated that include the CGST and the state GST inside this actually. And then you select submit. That's it. I mean, that's how easy it is to do the transaction for the receive invoice. After you do the transaction, you actually can go to the accounting transaction. You can see that the system is already quite clever to how much is the central GST, how much is the state GST, which state you are paying to, and the then you just finish your transaction, submit your transaction, and yes, submit, and that's it. So now you have finished all the transaction for your receive invoice. You can for example, if your supplier give you price reduction after the invoice, for example, for do certain thing, you don't ask your supplier to issue another invoice. You just ask them to give you a credit note. So in this case, for example, if you do okay, now we are going to do that transaction. First, you need to approve the transaction first. Um, inside this system, we expect there are two type of person, the one that run the accounting. One is the account clerk that do the transaction, and another one is the accountant, the one that's checking the transaction whether it's correct or not, and do the approval for the transaction. So once you approve the transaction, it will go into the system. Now you can do other transaction. For example, let's say we go back to receive invoice. For example, look at the receive invoice, and then you actually can you already see that the receive invoice is already inside the transaction. Now, if you want, let's say your supplier give you a credit note, then just click the receive credit note inside. Then you can see that, for example, they give you 10%, 100 rupee reduction, for example. Just go there and select the transaction, let's say discount or whatever, and then 100 rupee, and select the tax, which is the same, standard rated, and that's it. And you save. So now the credit note transaction is already done inside the system. Next, you just need to do accounting transaction, you practically don't have to do anything because the system will suggest for you uh, the the central tax, the state tax, and the um, debit to your supplier or to your creditor. Yeah, and then the for example, you can still select, for example, which account. In this case, we select the general sales account. So save, and that's it. You actually have done your transaction uh, for that receive invoice. You can do some other transaction. For example, you can do transaction for the purchasing of product from another state. So okay, we do transaction for receive invoice from another state. So okay, we let's say we already registered the supplier from another state, and then for example the state is from Goa, and okay, we do transaction for purchase from another state. Let's say the reference is whatever coming from another state, and then okay, we are buying some product from them, and then the price is, let's say, 2,000 rupee. Okay, and then you select the tax, standard rated, and now you can see that include tax is 2,400 rupee, and then you save, submit. After this, you do your accounting transaction, debit and credit. So the system already clever enough to select the central tax and state GST tax. You can see that the when you purchase, you are going to use the destination tax, and then since you are in Tamil Nadu, then the state tax will be the Tamil Nadu tax, and then you can select, for example, whether this is overhead or cost of goods sold or whatever. I mean that one your own selection, and then you submit. That's it. You can also do your receive credit note transaction. But now we are going to move on. Let's say, can you approve? Is it already approved? Okay, can you approve the transaction first? Okay, we are going to approve the transaction. Okay, the credit note already approved, right? Okay, can you approve the credit note? Okay, now you can see that we have done transaction, receive invoice from supplier within the state. We also have done transaction, receive credit note from supplier, the same supplier. And then we also have one transaction from uh, another state, which is interstate supplier. But we just receive invoice from them. Let's say that is our transaction. Now you need to move to the report, correct? How do you generate the Gst R2 report from this? So you just click Gst R2, and then this is for, let's say, from April, 1st April to end of April report. Select date, and then you generate the report. Click the PDF, and then you generate the report. Now we are generating the report, and just wait. We are generating. Once the report is ready, uh, you okay. Once the report is ready, just wait. Once ready, then we actually can see the report, can see the detail of the report. Okay, so you can click the download, and then you actually can see the report. But I'm not so sure whether you actually can see. Can they see the report here on the screen? Okay, so we are going to show you the report. Um, the report. Okay, so you can see that you have done that. you have done the purchase transaction. You also have done the credit note transaction. Okay, and purchase. Okay, you have done the purchase. Okay, so you can see the report inside that. Okay, now so once you do your purchase listing, if you have done the supply listing, you have done the purchase listing, then you actually can see the Gst R3 report, which is a combination report. So you can see the Faiz will show you how to get the Gst R3 report. Go to the report and then click the Gst R3, and then now you actually can get the Gst R3 report and click the detail, and you actually can see the Gst R3 report. What are the numbers inside it? And of course, we have done so many other transactions before. That's why the numbers are quite large, correct? But if you do your own transaction, then you actually can see the report according to your own transaction. All right. So there are many other functions inside the accounting system. We can go to the report, click the report there, report here, and you can see that there are a lot of transaction, a lot of report, P&L, balance sheet, trial balance, cash flow, general ledger, general listing, and all this. I mean, we are going to go to use another session to show the various function of the accounting system. But today, during this session, we are only focusing on the GST transaction. So for today webinar, we practically have shown you how to do transaction for the receive invoice and how to generate the various report, Gst R2 and Gst R3. So the most important thing is you are going to be able to upload the list of your purchases to GST and database. So the list of the purchases is available. The list of the purchases, the one that you are supposed to upload to the GSTN, is provided by the system in the Excel format. So you select the list of the purchases in Excel and upload. And we'll show you later on, the data in the Excel format for you to upload to the GSTN. And that's it. And we also will show you how to upload your creditors or your suppliers into the system. So you are going to click into, basically go to creditors and import Excel. So that is where you actually upload your creditors into the system. So you just try it. Make sure that your Excel have the various column, the one that is required. So you can download that. You click download the Excel format from the system. Then you make sure that your format is according to the required format. So after that, you upload the Excel. Then that's it. All your creditors are already uploaded into the system. The same thing in the previous session. You also can upload your customers list. So you go to the debtors and then go to the import from Excel. So the same thing. So you can upload this thing. So we are going to show you in the next session how you can upload the various debtors, creditors, and other lists inside the system so that you can build your chart of account ready for the GST. But my suggestion is once you have the system, you can do all your transaction, play around with the system, do your invoice, and then issue your credit note, do your purchases, and do your transaction receive credit note, and then generate your Gst R1, Gst R2, Gst R3 report until you are very familiar with the GST. The moment the GST is started, your company will be ready. So we are going to stop the session now, and we are going to answer the various question, the one that you asked during the session after this. So see you in the next session. Faiz, see you in the next session.
Yeah, see you
All
in
right.
the next session.
Okay, then thank you.